Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I have a lot to talk about. We just went through week 11 of the NFL season. I'm a Rams fan. I know there are a lot of Rams fans that want me to talk just about the Rams, but I have something big on my mind here. I'm talking playoffs, and I'm talking about teams that can ultimately win it all. I'm not talking about your 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. I'm not talking about the NFC East winner like I've already done. I'm not talking about who makes it in as the seventh seed in the playoffs. I'm strictly discussing four teams that I'm going to dub as the Elite Four in this NFL season, where I've gone through, I've watched the film, I've watched all these games, and I've come to the conclusion it all clicked at the end of week 11 when the final whistle was blown on Monday Night Football. I had it all up here. Four teams, elite teams. These are your only. I'm not saying there can't be other teams that enter this discussion, but right now there's only four teams that I think can win the Super Bowl. And we're going to go through them and we're going to give them a seed ranking and everything. And these are the teams right now. If I had to pick, this would be the NFC Championship and the AFC Championship, because right now we are looking at a very even based conference. We're looking at the NFC, we're looking at the AFC, and I feel, and I've said this to people that have discussed this with me, I feel as though the NFC is very top heavy this year, and the AFC is actually a better. I feel like the AFC is a better conference, and I haven't felt that way in a long time. This year, I absolutely believe the AFC is a better conference when you look at teams like the Raiders, like the Dolphins. You look at the way, Denver took care of business against the Dolphins. They could, emerge into that discussion of making the playoffs. The New England Patriots, we don't know how they're going to finish the season. I'm not ruling them out at all. The Tennessee Titans, without Taylor Lewan, just when they looked like they were kind of falling off a little bit, they came back and they won a huge game in overtime against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, they're a team that right now, not sure what's going on with them, but I'm not going to just count them out. The Browns, they have what I believe might be the easiest schedule I've ever seen, but at the same time, they keep winning games. They're 7-3. There's so many teams. I could go on, and I feel like the AFC is just more competitive. Whereas, right now, keep in mind, the Dolphins wouldn't make the playoffs, and all we were talking about was Brian Flores' Dolphins defense. So it kind of goes to show. I mean, this is a very unforgiving league, and it's I'll say this: the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they lose the game to the Rams on Monday Night Football. They have a tough test this weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs before they go on their first bye, which is of Week 13, which seems insane to me. So that's going to be something that I'm very intrigued to see, how well they bounce back off that. Because here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing. If the Bears beat the Green Bay Packers, that's probably the toughest team on their schedule. And the Bears would be 6-5, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be 7-5 if they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, which begs the question, could the Bears sneak in the seventh seed and knock Tom Brady and Tampa Bay out? And I'm not going to say they could, but that's definitely something to keep in mind. So before we get way down that rabbit hole, I just want to dedicate this time for the four elite teams that deserve to be talked about. And I don't necessarily think they're getting enough talk. Not all of them. Some of them are getting talk. First, we'll start off in the NFC, the New Orleans Saints. I went on record not only saying that Taysom Hill was a bad, huge mistake, but, I went on record basically multiple times, not on video, but saying that I felt as though this Saints team was fake. I felt like they were getting by on the skin of their teeth and they were a fake 7-2 team. But something about that Falcons game changed my mind. I watched the defense. I mean, this defense is very good, and you have somebody like Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson was a standout at the East-West Shrine game in the draft process. He's now leading the league in sacks with 9.5. So you have guys like that contributing. Cam Jordan, of course, Janoris Jenkins, Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, I really like the way they look. I like their defense has been stout. They shut down Matt Ryan. They shut down the Falcons. The Falcons' offense, that's one thing you can't knock. They were a top 10 offense coming into this game. Sure, they haven't finished games, and quite honestly, they've left a lot to be desired, but I expected Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons to win that football game. And even with Taysom Hill, say what you will, and I definitely don't think he was phenomenal, but I think he was pretty good for what he was asked to do. Hill managed the game. 18 and 23, 233 yards, had 2 rushing touchdowns on 51 yards, 10 carries. Sure, he had 2 fumbles and one that he lost, but at the end of the day, he did enough for them to win 24-9. That's all you can really ask for. It's really uncertain with Drew Brees and uncertain if Jameis Winston could, get in there. But right now, the Saints are the number 1 team in the NFC. They're 5th in points per game. They're 12th in total yards per game. They're 14th in pass yards per game. They're 8th in rush yards per game. 3rd in defense, total defense. 11th in pass defense. 2nd in run defense. They're 7th in defensive takeaways. And they're 8th in time of possession. So this team is not perfect. I mentioned they're 14th in passing yards and 12th in total yards per game. So they're not perfect. But this team has done enough to win games even when it seems like they shouldn't. Carolina is a perfect example. They could have lost that game. There's many others on the schedule that they could have lost, but they didn't. And at the end of the day, we need to get away from penalizing teams for not winning convincingly. Because here's the thing. What's the point of football, right? It's entertainment. So obviously you and I want to see points. We want to see our favorite players score a lot. But if this season has taught me anything as a Rams fan, I've realized that it doesn't matter how much you score. I've been really spoiled with Sean McVay coming to the Rams. They were a team, they were scoring all sorts of points. They were on track to break greatest show on turf records, all sorts of things, right? But the fact is, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you get the win. And we're seeing that with the Cleveland Browns. It is not pretty. They're ugly wins. It's ugly football watching the Cleveland Browns, but they're 7-3. It doesn't matter. If you win 13 games and 13 of them are ugly, it doesn't matter as long as you get in the playoffs, and then anything can happen. It's kind of like the Giants when I was talking about the Giants making it in the NFC East. It doesn't matter if they win that division with 5 wins. If the Giants make it to the NFC, they win the NFC East, and they make it to the playoffs, they have a home playoff game. That is what we're looking at. So, anything can really happen in that scenario, and, the whole point of it is to just get to the playoffs and see where the chips fall. So, uncertainty with them, to me, is the quarterback position. Keep in mind the entire year, it seems like, except for the last few weeks, they've been without their top receiver. Not only their top receiver, one of the best receivers in all of football, and Michael Thomas. You cannot discount the impact he has on defenses and on his own offense. So, that's first and foremost. They have played a lot without him. Now he's back. And they added Emmanuel Sanders in the offseason. I think was a very underrated signing. Really helps Michael Thomas. Traquan Smith is kind of taking the next step in a sense, where I feel like he's starting to really develop and come into his own. Alvin Kamara is having a phenomenal season. After last year, it was kind of a disappointment. You have Jared Cook in the red zone, and I've said it before, this team lives in the red zone. This is a team where I'm looking at their schedule here, at Denver, at Atlanta, at Philly, Kansas City, Minnesota, at Carolina. That's a combined record of 27, 33, and 1. There's some tough games, but this team is in the moment. They love those tough games. They love winning close. They will do whatever it takes to win. But they've already they've proven for us, guys, that it doesn't matter who they play because they played Tampa Bay and they blew them out. So, they swept Tampa Bay. So this team is very interesting to me, and they're a team to look out for sure. And they're the number 1 team in the NFC, so we have to give them their respect. To me right now, they're number 3 in the league. And we'll get to, we'll rank them, but this is the number 3 team in the league. This is a great football team, has a chance to be one of the best. Well, they are one of the best football teams. Has a chance to win a Super Bowl, I think. Whether it's Breeze, whether it's Taysom Hill, whether it's Jameis Winston, I think they have so much there. Personally, I would be starting Jameis Winston over Taysom Hill, but I understand Sean Payton kind of dove into that. He put all his eggs in a basket. He's been, constantly pounding the stake of Taysom Hill. And if you think about it, Taysom Hill is modern day Tim Tebow. If Tim Tebow listened to the coaches and got off the idea like he wanted to just play quarterback, if he listened to them and just played tight end, what you're seeing with Taysom Hill is what I believe you would have seen with Tim Tebow. So with that said, the Saints, number 1 in the NFC, they are part of my Elite Four. Book it. They're in there. They are a Super Bowl contender. I have concerns with all 4 of these teams. I have an uncertainty little, red flag thing that I'm throwing out there. But if their concern is quarterback and they have the deepest quarterback room potentially in the league, maybe it's not much of an uncertainty. Maybe it's just a matter of who's throwing the football and who's throwing it a little bit better than another. Because I think they can do enough where if Drew Brees is the guy that they need to run a high-octane passing attack and they feel limited with Taysom Hill, well, Taysom Hill is going to keep defenses off balance as it is, and you have Alvin Kamara, and you have all these weapons, and you have your defense, and I think this defense at the end of the day literally gave Matt Ryan and the Falcons zero opportunity whatsoever of coming back and winning that football game. They never felt in it. It was just a great performance by the defense. But moving on to number 2 in my Elite Four, and that right there is the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, I'm a Rams fan, but here's the thing, okay? Aside from the 17th in the league in points per game, they're 5th in yards per game, they're 9th in pass yards per game, they're 9th in rushing yards per game, they're 1st in defensive total yards allowed, they're 2nd in defensive pass yards allowed, they're 5th in defensive rush yards allowed, they're tied for 7th in defensive takeaways, and they're 5th in time of possession. This is a Super Bowl team. I've been saying this. They're the team to beat in the NFC West. It's not because I'm a fan. It's the simple fact they are the best team in the NFC West. We'll see when they play the Cardinals how well they match up, but I'll tell you right now, I'm not worried. If I'm a Rams fan, and I am, I'm not worried about the Cardinals. The Cardinals the Cardinals could easily be 5-5 if DeAndre Hopkins doesn't reach to the sky and catch that incredible Hail Mary. They're a missed Hail Mary away from being 5-5 and then, losing to Seattle, which would put them at 5-6 or what have you. So I'm not worried about the Cardinals and I'm not worried about Seattle. The Rams outplayed Seattle pretty much the entirety of the game last week. But when I saw the Rams, and I had a feeling this was coming. As many of you know, I predicted the Rams would win 24-21. They ended up winning 27-24. I had them winning on a Matt Gay field goal, and Matt Gay, of course, kicked the game-winning field goal, or go-ahead field goal. So that's cool. But anyway, the Rams, when they went in to Tampa Bay, they played their 5th game on the East Coast. Miami, Buffalo, Philly, Washington, Tampa Bay. 5 East Coast games. You're coming from the West Coast to the East Coast. The reason I felt that wouldn't be a huge issue in this game, it's a Monday Night Football game. They had another day to digest and relax and get ready for it. It wasn't a day game. It wasn't early in the morning. It was a nighttime game. I feel like this team plays well under Sean McVay for the most part in prime time. There's sometimes they've slipped before, but they've looked really good this year, except for, the 49er game, in a game that they could have won. I mean, let's be real here. So they go into Tampa Bay, and the score shows 27-24. And you can honestly say, throw the officiating out the window and how bad they were, and the fact that they were giving phantom pass interference calls to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the fact that they basically, Tom Brady got his hand hit and the ball came out and they changed the rule. Apparently that's not a fumble anymore. Forget all that. Okay. This team was in control the entire time. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were not able to run their offense the way they wanted to. Their defense was really good, don't get me wrong, because they sold out to stop the run. However, one thing that should scare the entire NFL is that over the last 2 weeks, Jared Goff has not only outplayed Tom Brady, but he's outplayed Russell Wilson as well. So he's outplayed those two guys in the last 2 weeks, coming off a brutal loss against Miami Dolphins, in which the Rams really dominated that game on the defensive side of the ball, but they dominated more on the Miami side. Brian Flores' defense forced 4 turnovers, and that's what was, that sold the deal. So that's really what that came down to. But to see the Rams come off a bye and kind of look in the mirror and see that they lost a tough game against Miami, a game that they should have won, and they end up losing by 11. And Jared Goff comes off that bye, and he heard it from me. He heard it from a lot of people. Just all of this uncertainty, this scrutiny, and I think all of it was valid. But he heard that. He took it to heart, and he improved upon his game. And we've seen that. And that's why the Rams are 2-0 coming off the bye against two teams that are very good. And we were hearing, oh, well, I don't know how good this team is. We started off this channel with a video about Nick Wright, when he basically said, well, this team has only beaten the NFC East. Well, now they've beaten Seattle and they've beaten Tampa Bay, who have been media darlings. So it's time to give the Rams the respect they deserve. They are the number 1 defense in the NFL. They are. Brandon Staley has been transformative for that defense. Some guys remain from last year, but for the most part, you do have key losses like a Corey Littleton, Dante Fowler, and when you look at this team, they've added pieces like, they got Micah Kaiser back from injury. They added Leonard Floyd, and Darius Williams, because he was able to play at the end of last year, I think he was more ready for this year. He's taken on a significantly larger role. So you have a tandem there. You drafted Jordan Fuller, who is the 199th overall pick, the same pick we kept hearing Tom Brady was selected at. Well, 20 years to the date he was drafted, and then 20 years later, he picks off Tom Brady twice to seal the deal. Jordan Fuller has been huge for that back end of the secondary, and this defense is legit. I mean, I can't stress enough, they are the best defense in football. Aaron Donald isn't getting sacks over the last 3 games or what have you, and they're still constantly putting pressure, and they're still dominating teams. So what's going to happen when Aaron Donald breaks through and he gets that strip sack or he gets that impact sack? I mean, Michael Brockers just played his best game of his career maybe against Tampa Bay. And that's the thing, is that they're only getting better, it seems like, each week. I mean, this was a tough matchup. And the Rams just did a great job of, being on the road. They did a great job of just minimizing the damage and really shut down Tom Brady and company, forcing Tom Brady to turn the ball over twice. This offense, though, we've been seeing it. They're showing more and more each week. They're getting better and better. This is a Sean McVay offense. They're going to get better, guys. They're going to. They continue to improve upon where they were. Like I said, 17th in points per game. I believe they were 24th right around the game when they played the Bears. So they've improved. And I think you're going to continue to see them improve. And the fact is that they are, they're a top offense in yards. So they just have to string together more touchdowns. And they finally have a kicker who last night, Matt Gay, who kicked the go-ahead field goal. Keep in mind they haven't had a kicker. So he still missed a field goal, but they weren't even making extra points. So that really took a hit to their points per game total and average. So I think the Rams, their offense is starting to click, I think. You saw Jared Goff, very comfortable. The uncertainties here. The kicker, we'll see with Matt Gay. I'm a big fan of his. I thought he was good for Tampa Bay. And, of course, he won the Rams the game. Jared Goff's consistency is still an uncertainty to me. 2 games, great. Let's continue this. Let's see it. Let's see him rip it. McVay's consistency, starts off the game, great drive, sets the tone. Second drive, very, very, very conservative, holds Jared Goff back. And then there were multiple drives in that game where I felt like he kind of held them back. So there's still McVay consistency issues. There's Jared Goff consistency issues. And the kicker, he just kicked his first game and looked good, but he did also miss a field goal And Joe Noteboom, who I am very high on. I did a video on him. You can see all of his snaps in the Seattle game. I'll probably cut up all his snaps in the Tampa Bay game because he was great. He was exactly what they needed. I'm not going to say that he's 100% a guarantee the rest of the way, but going up against Jason Pierre-Paul, his pass sets were impressive. He had an anchor. He was ready, very confident. I like him in pass protection. I think he had the highest pass pro grade by Pro Football Focus this week alone. However, he is definitely a liability in the run game. And of course, that could be going up against the number one run defense in Tampa. They only ran the ball, for 37 yards or what have you. So that could be something to do with that. But moving forward, Noteboom has to build off this. Goff has to build off this. McVay has to get better at managing the game. He had a few huge flashes, including right at the end of the half, calling that well-designed screen to Robert Woods. Woods got free in the open field. They were able to kick a field goal, rush, and get the ball spiked. Great job by Jared Goff. And that field goal, guys, that ended up being what was the difference in this game, I think, because they won 27-24. So moving forward with this schedule, the number 2 seed in the NFC, you have San Francisco this week. I think the Rams look pretty good in that one. Looking for revenge. I don't see that being any bit close. Then they go to Arizona. Then they have New England and the Jets back-to-back in LA. So then they go to Seattle, and then they have Arizona. A combined record of 27-33. And, guys, they only have 2 road games. So, and pretty much they're staying on the West Coast. The furthest they're traveling is Seattle or Arizona. That's not a big deal. So I think this is huge for the Rams. I think they have a huge opportunity to run the table, just like I think the Saints could run the table. I'm not saying they will. They have a tough task. I think they have a tougher road than the Rams, to be honest with you, having to play, in Philly, in Denver, and in Atlanta, the next 3 games in a row. Not to mention they have Kansas City, Minnesota, and at Carolina. I would make the argument they have a tougher road than the Rams. So it's interesting here. Rams sitting here at 7-3. New Orleans sitting there at 8-2. I won't say who's going to win the NFC. I do think the Rams have a shot, but they have to run the table. I don't see the Saints losing a bunch of games. I see them maybe losing 2 at max. So the Rams have to be careful how many they lose. But these are the 2 best teams in the NFC. These are part of the Elite Four. And we're going to move on to the AFC now. And the AFC, the number 1 team in the AFC and the number 1 team in the NFL, and the team that I believe has the MVP of the entire league, and you feel free to argue with me. Shout out to Adam Steele, my cousin. He's got a YouTube channel. He made a great argument for Ben Roethlisberger to win MVP. The Pittsburgh Steelers, look, they're the best team in the NFL right now until proven otherwise. They're the first seed in the AFC. They're 10-0. They're 4th in points per game. They're 21st in yards per game. They're 19th in pass yards per game. They're 21st in rush yards per game. Sounds not the best, right? Because you go from 4th in points per game to they don't get a lot of yards. Well, they don't get a lot of yards because think about this, and this is important. The defense, they're first in takeaways, folks. So when they take the ball away, how often does this offense get the ball at their own 20? Not often, really. This is a team that they take the ball away so often that they're putting their team right in the red zone. So the offense is being penalized based on yards, but in reality, if you really think about it, they're so far down the board because this defense is turning teams over in their own side of the field, and the Steelers are getting it flipped into the red zone or near, in opportunity to score. So I want to put that out there. That's very important here. They're 4th in defensive total yards per game. They're 3rd in defensive pass yards per game. They're 7th in run defense. They're 3rd in time of possession. The biggest issue with Pittsburgh that I've seen, and I've seen all the games in the NFL to this point, I watch them every week. I watch all of them. Pittsburgh, their biggest issue is running the football. They have not been consistent with that. And Adam Steele actually did a perfect video on explaining James Conner and how his stats would show that he is a 1,000-yard rusher and he's going to have a great season on paper. But in reality, it's been chunk games where he's had 100 yards, but then the next game he turns in a 29-yard game. You can't have that. And so the Steelers right now going up against, say the Bengals and going up against teams along that nature, sure, you don't have to run the football. But when you go up against, the tougher teams, it's going to be an issue. So how good is the Steelers' running game? We'll find out when we find out. But until further notice, guys, this is the best team in the NFL. That is their only uncertainty. The rest of the year, they'll play Baltimore. They'll play Washington. They go to Buffalo, at Cincinnati, Indianapolis, at Cleveland. They have a combined record of 32, 27, and 1. It is not the easiest schedule. And it does not necessarily mean that they are going to be 16-0 or not 16-0. But when I look at this, I think they can beat Baltimore. Baltimore's kind of falling off ever since they lost Ronnie Stanley, their left tackle. They just have not looked the same on offense. And their defense now all of a sudden can't stop the run. So that's a concern for Baltimore, not the Steelers. Washington, very interesting here. Washington and the Steelers, they both have good defenses, but at the end of the day, the thing that's interesting in this game is you saw the Steelers kind of have a little bit of a hard time taking down the Cowboys. You do get winning fatigue. So you could see, around this point, physical defense in the Washington football team. They could give the Steelers a little bit of an issue. I still think the Steelers are going to win. It'll be a close game, but I imagine they'll win that football game. Very similar to the Cowboys game, though. I think it will be close, and people will, write off the fact that, Alex Smith is probably perfect for them trying to manage that football team with what they have with Terry McLaurin as a weapon, and, of course, Antonio Gibson really emerging as their rookie running back. The Buffalo game, going to Buffalo. Here's the thing. Ben Roethlisberger, he's not going to get faced by Buffalo weather, okay? That's the big thing. If you're looking at that and you're like, well, it's a tough game, they're going to be in Buffalo. Okay, well, New York isn't allowing fans in the stands, so throw that away. And on top of it, it's going to be a cold weather game, which pretty much if you play in the AFC North, you play in cold weather. You just do. And Big Ben is built to do that. So I'm not necessarily worried about that game. I'd imagine, you have the Steelers at 13-0 at that point. Cincinnati, I'm sorry. They don't have Joe Burrow, and I hope he's going to be okay. I think he will. But regardless, without Joe Burrow, they are not going to win a football game. He literally had no offensive line to speak of, and the things he was doing was very admirable and incredible. So they would win that game 14-0. What it comes down to me, the final two games, I think they beat Cleveland at the end of the year, the last game in Cleveland. Indianapolis is the one team where they're right outside this Elite Four that I'm talking about, but they're not far. They're 5, 6, or 7. They're in that category. They beat Green Bay in a very, very, very important game for the NFC that changed the complexion of the NFC overnight, and for the AFC. They could be the 3 seed. So this is a very, very, very interesting team. Matt Eberflus has done an incredible job with that defense. That defense just has so many key players. And, at the end of the day, I look at them as, Phillip Rivers, he has the experience. If he gets into a playoff game, he can win a playoff game. They have the weapons. They have the offensive line. So when I'm looking at this game, this is the only Steelers game that I would worry about if I'm a Steelers fan hoping for perfection at 16-0. Personally, I'd rather just win a Super Bowl. I wouldn't really worry about the 16-0. 16-0 is cool, but we've already seen the Patriots and what happened with them going 18-0, unable to seal the deal with the Super Bowl win. So, yeah, I think the Steelers are the best team in the NFL. I think there's a chance they go 16-0. I would probably bank on 15-1 because I think that Colts game is going to be a little too much for them. Then again, it is in Pittsburgh, so they have that going for them. But this is a fantastic team. Mike Tomlin, you have to give him all the credit in the world. But Ben Roethlisberger, you have to give him all the credit in the world. Because when Ben Roethlisberger is healthy, this team is night and day better than what they were last year. And this team isn't much different than last year. Sure, they lost to Javon Hargrave, and he is a big-time player. But they have guys in the trenches. When you look at a Stephon Tuitt, or you look at the way Tyson Alu is playing, guys like that, and not to mention their edge defense with Bud Dupree and TJ Watt, and you have guys, they're doing this, keep in mind, Devin Bush tore his ACL. They don't even have, they're not full strength, folks. So This Steelers team, to me, is incredible. And their defense is incredible. But Big Ben is doing stuff that, I mean, he's like, think about this, okay? In NBA terms, LeBron James leaves the Cavs and they just become rubble when he goes to the Lakers. Did that happen with Big Ben when he got hurt? Did the Steelers go to rubble? If your answer is anything other than yes, you're not watching. This team without Ben Roethlisberger doesn't win football games. They just don't. I'm not a big fan of Mason Rudolph, and I'm a friend of Devlin Hodges is a friend of my show. I love the guy. But Big Ben is the Steelers. And they have the weapons, sure, and they have a great defense. But what he's able to do and keep them on that right path, that is what makes them so scary. You have that consistency at the quarterback position. He's just playing at such a high level. It's been really impressive to watch. And yeah, I'm done gushing about the Steelers. But I'm sure my cousins will enjoy that. And I'm sure you Steelers fans that are watching will enjoy that. But this is the best team in the NFL. I have them at 1. I have the Saints at 3. I have the Rams at 4. So who else is in the Elite Four? Well, there's one more, right? It would be the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, I just told you that I'm not going to penalize teams for how they won or lost games. Or no, basically how they won games, right? The Kansas City Chiefs, I felt annoyed that they won that football game over the Raiders because I felt the Raiders deserved to win the football game. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs won. They made all the right plays at the end. Patrick Mahomes is a freak of nature, and they won. They're first in points per game. They're second in yards per game. They're first in pass yards per game. They're 16th in rush, 15th in defensive total yards per game, 8th in defensive pass yards per game, 26th in defensive run, tied for 7th in defensive takeaways, and they had 20th in time of possession. So a lot to digest there. Very simply put, this team likes the big plays, and they use it all the time. They don't eat clock, and at the end of the day, they can't stop the run. They can't. They cannot, and that's a problem. That is a big problem moving forward. But this is the second best team in the league right now. This is the second best team in the AFC right now. Patrick Mahomes is the equalizer. When you have Tyreek Hill and you have Travis Kelce, I mean, they have talent all over. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we'll just sprinkle in Le'Veon Bell there. And, I mean, Mecole Hardman here. I mean, that's the thing. The offensive line is pretty good. They have weapons. But Patrick Mahomes could make anybody look good. He is a phenomenal quarterback. He is the face of the league. Aaron Donald may be the best player in football, but Patrick Mahomes is the face of football right now. He is the best player. He's the best offensive player in the world right now in the game of football. So looking at this defense, they have their flaws. And, I've been really impressed with guys like Chris Jones for years. So they have players like that. And at the end of the day, I really like the rookie L'Jarius Sneed. I like the way he's playing, and Sorensen has really stepped it up. But this defense is always going to be in the back of my mind an issue for this team. It's what's going to hold them back and force Patrick Mahomes to have to go Superman. And I don't have that with the Steelers, Saints, and Rams. So while they're number 2 in my rankings right now, and I still think that they'll stay in the Elite Four for the rest of the year, I have that concern. And mainly I have the concern that the 26th defense against the run. They're good against the pass. They're 8th. They're tied for 7th in defensive takeaways with the Rams and Saints. So they take the ball away as well. They give Patrick Mahomes extra opportunities. But they can't stop the run. You know who can run the ball? The Rams can run the ball. The Saints can run the ball. So, kind of funny here, right? You have, on one hand, you have the NFC Elite Four, part of the Elite Four. You have the Saints and the Rams that can run the football. And in the AFC, you have a team that can't run the football and a team that can't stop anyone running the football. So, that is the interesting thing here. And when you're looking at these four teams, whether you have Rams Steelers in a Super Bowl, or you get a Saints Steelers Super Bowl, or a Saints Chiefs, or a Rams Chiefs, I think these are the four best teams in the NFL today. And I'm selling. I'm done. I signed, sealed, delivered. It is done. These are the four best teams in the NFL. Things can change, but I'm making this proclaim. I am basically claiming that these are the four best teams. These are the only four Super Bowl contenders. It doesn't mean the Colts can't come in here and knock the Chiefs out of it. It doesn't mean that Green Bay is out of the water. It doesn't mean any of that. But what it means is right now, these are the four best teams in my mind, and these are the only four Super Bowl contenders right now. Things can change, but right now, these are the four Super Bowl contenders. Aaron Rodgers on the Packers, you have to imagine he's going to make a run, but I don't trust the defense. I've said that over and over and over again. That is the thing with the NFC. And I've said this for a while. In order to win a Super Bowl, you need a balanced approach. You need a balanced football team. The Rams are starting to get balanced because their offense is getting better and their defense is the best in the league. The Saints defense is very good and their offense lives in the red zone. The Steelers, well, they don't have a ton of yards because the defense is constantly ripping the ball out of the other team's hands and putting them right in front of the goal line. Had the Steelers had to start in their own 20 or 25 yard line, they can drive the length of the field. And they have big players like, a Chase Claypool or an Eric Ebron or a Juju Smith-Schuster or Deontay Johnson or James Washington. They have those talents. So I'm not worried about that. So they have great defense, one of the best in the league, and they have one of the best offenses in the league. Averages 4th in the league in points per game. Then the Chiefs. 1st in the league in points per game. Lethal offense. Their defense is 8th against the pass, 26th against the run. So their defense ranks about 15th, middle of the pack. That's fine. That's balanced for me. Balance doesn't mean you're the best at both. It just means that you can play both. So those are the four best teams. If the Colts change, if they get better and more efficient as a true offense, I think the Colts can sneak in there. But they're the only team I look at and I think, yeah, they could sneak in there because Eberflus's defense. I mean, that's the only team I'm thinking of, folks. So, I mean, you could say the Packers, but I'm getting Aaron Rodgers. I'm not getting a defense. You could say Seattle, but I'm not getting a defense. They're historically bad. Say they're getting better, but Russell Wilson doesn't seem to be playing at the crazy level he was playing at. You could say the Cardinals, but they just lost, and they've lost now 2 straight, and or they've lost the last 2 of the last 3. And to be honest with you, as much as I love Kyler Murray and like watching him play, I don't think that they're super special, and I think they can be stopped. We've seen it. So you could say all these teams, right? But at the end of the day, these are the 4 teams. These are the Elite 4. It's why they play the games. It's funny. Before the bye, like I said, Rams lose to the Dolphins. People wanted to say that they weren't even going to make the playoffs. They beat the Seahawks, and everyone's saying, "Oh, what's wrong with Seattle?" Today, the media, "Oh, what's wrong with Tom Brady?" Well, hate to break it to you, but Tom Brady and Russell Wilson went up against the best defense in football and a Super Bowl team. Now, Rich Eisen is starting to see it. He's saying, well, we've talked about that they're a good team. No, he's like, they're a great team. They're a Super Bowl contender. Rich Eisen said it today. You had Nate Burleson, who was talking about it a little bit. I mean, he wasn't as on it as Rich Eisen was. And you had a few others. But, like, using the Rams win as just a way to dog on Tom Brady, to me, isn't giving the Rams credit. I don't mind you dogging on Tom Brady. I mean, the guy is considered widely as the GOAT. He can live with that. What I mind is that you're not going to give credit where credit's due. It's the same with the Saints. Look, I was dogging on Taysom Hill. But at the end of the day, if they continue to win football games, I'm not going to have any argument. No one is. If Taysom Hill continues to win football games, there's no argument to be made at all. So that's the thing. You have 9 wins from the Chiefs, 10 wins from the Steelers, 7 from the Rams, 8 from the Saints. So 4 teams, and they all have different records. And these are the Elite Four. If you guys disagree with me or have any sort of comment, question, concern, let me know. Drop it below. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, I'm Jake Ellenbogen. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Tell your friends about me. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Also, Rams fans, if you like what you hear, you like listening to me, you want to hear more about the Rams, I have a podcast with Alexis Kraft, who is a phenomenal co-host. That podcast is called the Downtown Rams Podcast, and I will post the link below. It is popping right now. There are a lot of people listening to it, celebrating the Rams win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can find that below. But until next time, guys, later.